The Resurrection is a 2022 horror psychological thriller film, and the film begins with the introduction of the character of the Gwen, which is a co-worker of the main protagonist of this film, that is the female protagonist of this film, that is the Margaret, and she is a very successful biotech executive and single mother to her 17-year-old daughter, that is Abby, and she just maintains strict control over her life, and she just balances her demanding career because with her role as a mother as well. So Margaret also engages in no strings attached affair with her married colleague, that is Peter. So after she's having daughter, I mean, and she's just engaged or having affair, and that too, I think, with a physical need with the so-called that guy that is his colleague Peter. So I think that is just ridiculous. And next, her interaction at work just revealed her as a very composed mentor who just advises the younger colleagues and the young people about the personal and professional matters as well. And she even advises a young intern to leave an abusive relationship, showcasing her very assertiveness and the authority. And Margaret, I think she has very casual romantic relationship with a married co-worker, that is Peter, as we have discussed earlier. And their arrangement is very kind of a divide of emotional attachment, as I earlier said. It was kind of just begging the physical need for each other. So mutual relationship between both of them, and reinforcing their control over her personal life. Her carefully constructed world, however, begins to crumble when she attends a work conference and spot a man that is named as David. And the character of the David is played by Tim Roth in the crowd. Many of the times we see in the film that the character of the Margaret is just kind of bored from her regular life, just going in and out when she's attending her work, and then she's back to home looking after her 17-year-old daughter Abby. So it's very strenuous life because she has a dual role, one as a mother and other as a entrepreneur, or her job that she's currently doing now. So it becomes very difficult for a single person to manage both of the sides. And when she sees David again, that just sends a trigger an immediate intense reaction in the Margaret. We see that she abruptly leaves the event, shaken and visibly panicked. The reaction just signals that David is a figure from a traumatic past that just starts to haunt her whenever she sees him, and soon she starts seeing him in a very unexpected places, on the street, at the park, and even her near her workplaces. That is so unexpected and out of the plane. I mean, you do not expect him to be anywhere near her workplace or something like that, and her fear just becomes overwhelming, disrupting her ability to just focus on the things that she needed to do in her life, especially the work life thing and workplace thing, that is a job thing. And she just attempts to maintain her routine, but her paranoia just grows day by day because this thing just haunts her. During one of her encounters, David appears very calm and composed, while Margaret just grows increasingly fanatic, and her sinister calmness only heightens her uneasiness that lead to very difficult situation later on. We see that the character of the Margaret's paranoia, it just extends to her daughter as well, that is Abby. And one day when Abby finds a human tooth in her wallet, a very horrifying discovery that just leaves her unsettled. And Margaret sees this as a clear sign of David's sinister influence. And shortly after, Abby has a very biking accident, and after that biking accident, that just leaves her with a sprained ankle. While the accident could be just coincidental, but Margaret just interpreted it as a very further proof that the David is targeting her family, because that thing is just only roaming in her mind. So she kind of connected the dot here. So linking this accident with the David's uh, haunting thing, or the David presence, and her obsessive attempt to protect the Abby strained their relationship. And Abby just began questioning about her mother's mental health, or the mother's mental trauma, that what she's going through, or emotionally or psychologically she's not feeling well, or she's having some problem with her brain or something like that. So mental issue is very much bigger thing, I think, in the eyes of the Abby regarding her mother. So we do see a really very good and honest perspective about her mother through the view of Abby. In a very vulnerable moment, we see that Margaret just open up to her young intern, that is Gwen, as I mentioned before, and just reveals her dark past with the David. And we see that at the age of 18, Margaret was in relationship with David, who was significantly older, as we can nearly see. I mean, he's just an old guy right there, a fantasy. And the relationship was just very much abusive and manipulative at the same time. And with David exercising his complete control over her, and he demanded acts of self-harm, what he called kindness, as proof of her love and obedience. This is very strange love. I mean, I have not seen this kind of strange love. And now Margaret just recounts the most devastating event, that is the birth of their own son Ben. David becomes jealous of Margaret's attention towards the baby and perceiving him as his rival. So, and one day we see that Margaret returned home to find Ben missing, and David just coldly informed her that he had eaten their child, leaving behind only two of the baby's finger as a proof. And traumatized and very terrified, Margaret just fled and rebuilt her life, believing that she has escaped David grasp. So this is just a kind of a backstory that what has happened between her and David. So this, I think the past is really traumatizing here, and we can just think that how much in deep trouble the character of the Margaret is, or how much the tension or the frightenedness she had just felt because her baby is no more, that is Ben. And David reappearance just throws Margaret life into again chaos, hell, or mess type, because all things are messed right up when his reappearance is there. And he just again tries to stalk her subtly and showing up at her gym or walking her near the workplace she works there. And his presence alone is not enough to just unnerve her, but he takes things further by engaging her in a very cryptic conversation. And during one encounter, we see that he tells Margaret that Ben is still alive and is living inside him. He claims that he has kept the baby safe with his body all these years, and playing on Margaret's lingering guilt and the maternal instincts. So, if any kind of person here, it at first point of time that a baby is kept in a man's abdomen or something like that, it is very strange to us. I mean, so it does not make any sense at all. And so his David manipulation just blur the line between the reality and the illusion or the delusion for Margaret, that what is real and what is not, and what to believe and what to not. So this makes really difficult for her to choose the path, and her fear just become all consuming, and she starts to lose her grip on her very carefully constructed life that she has moved on after having break up with David himself. And she changes the locks on her apartment and installs additional security measures and even buys a handgun for protection. And as Margaret's obsession with David grows, she alienates those around her, especially Abby, and she becomes increasingly distant, struggling to understand what's going on with her mother. And her mother's behavior has changed in recent time very erratically. So she's kind of having doubt, suspicion, and just questioning that what the hell is happening to her. And during one argument, Abby accuses Margaret of being controlling and paranoid at the same time. And this confrontation just forces Margaret to confront how much her past is just influencing her present relationship. So the things that have happened with her in the past is just influencing the things that are right now she's having, maybe in the kind of a daughter's relationship, or even the relationship with the she's having with the Peter, or the work-life balance, or the other thing relating to her. And meanwhile her professional life just begins to suffer, because these things just ultimately get onto your work as well, because that just sticks inside your mind and you cannot just focus on your work. So Margaret's co-workers just notice her declining focus and the emotional instability, and we see that her affair with the Peter ends, further isolating her from any semblance of normalcy. And in one particularly disturbing scene, we see that David confronts Margaret in a park and demands another kindness as a proof of her obedience. And the moment is just chilling echo of their past relationship that they once had. And with David attempting to just reassert his control over her, and Margaret just refuses, but the encounter leaves her shaken, and her behavior just becomes increasingly erratic, and she begins stalking David, watching him from afar in an attempt to just anticipate his next move. And her paranoia just escalates to the point where she neglects her own safety, venturing into very dangerous situations to confront the tormentor himself. And slowly, the thing that David just said to Margaret regarding Ben, that just I think begins to take root. And David claims about Ben begins to take root actually when we see that she becomes convinced that her son is alive within the David, so and that she must rescue him. So the delusion just drives her to the brink of insanity, and her once organized life is now completely in disarray. And we see that her relationship with are fractured beyond any repair or the limit actually, because I think they cannot be repaired easily. Her interaction with David grow more intense and bizarre, and during one confrontation, she just pleads with him to release Ben, and David, ever the manipulator, just taunts her, playing into her delusion to maintain his psychological hold over her. And in the film's climatic sequence, we see that the character of the Margaret just lures David to a hotel room, and in this hotel room, we see that they are under the guise of meeting his demand. And armed with a knife, she just attacks him in a very fit of rage and desperation. We see that there is a kind of fight between both of them, where they both just try to harm each other in any way possible. So the confrontation is actually brutal, we see that, and chaotic, with Margaret just stabbing David multiple times. We see that, and he just cannot get up because he just stabbed, and it makes very difficult for David to just stand up and fight back against her. As David just lies dying, Margaret performs a very gruesome, a very terrifying act here. She cut open his stomach or the abdomen region and convinced that she will find the bed inside. But to Margaret's surprise and deluded relief, she just believed that she has rescued her son. That is a living, breathing baby. She just cradles in her arms. So I think that scene was really brutal. We see some really grotesque things here related to body horror and all these things, blood, and I think this was the disturbing scene in total. I think all of the movie. This scene just really outstanding, especially the baby's makeup and whole the setting environment of the last scene. Just I think elevate the performance of this movie, and because the ending scene is the highlight of the movie, you cannot. I think you have to agree upon that, because the final scene of resurrection just leaves the audience questioning the reality of the Margaret's perception. But in her mind, she just has succeeded in freeing Ben from David's control, and she's seen holding an infant, rocking him gently while smiling with maternal joy. But however, the film just provides subtle clues that this may all be a kind of hallucination and a manifestation of Margaret's fractured psyche. The ending is just intentionally ambiguous at the same time, and that just leaves viewers to interpret whether Margaret has succumbed entirely to her delusion, or if there is some truth to her belief that Ben is just alive or what. The film just closes on a very haunting note, with Margaret just seemingly at peace, but the lingering question of her mental state just cast a very shadow over her apparent happiness. If I talk about the themes and analysis of the movie, especially I think it explores the psychological scar that are just left by the abuse and the cyclical nature of the trauma that once the Margaret has, and Margaret just attempts to regain control over her life, uh, and constantly undermined by David's manipulative tactic, highlighting the enduring power dynamics in a very abusive relationship that she has been for a very long. When she was young, when she was 18 years old. The film also delves into the themes of guilt and maternal instinct, as Margaret's love for her lost son just become the driving force behind her action, and she just lost in that, because that is the only goal that she is looking now, and everything just become secondary for her at that point of time. And the movie's ambiguous ending, I think, just challenges viewers to grapple with the subjective nature of reality and the limit of what human resilience is. And Rebecca Hall as Margaret just delivers a very powerful and packed performance, capturing the raw intensity of the character's emotional journey. And I think the ending regarding thing, if try to just interpret the ending, I think the most plausible interpretation is that the Margaret has suffered a very complete mental breakdown, and the idea of just finding a baby inside David is just deeply symbolic, I think, and it's just representing her inability to let go of her past and her just desperate need for closure. And in this interpretation, we see the baby is not real, and the Margaret perception of having saved Ben is just delusion born out of her trauma and guilt. And an alternate interpretation that can be thought is that which is I think less grounded in reality. That David claims were true and that Ben was somehow alive within him. I don't know how the heck that is possible even, but if you consider for even some time, the interpretation just aligns with the film's surreal and psychological horror element. But I think it leaves many questions unanswered, such as how I mean this could be physically possible or something like that. And the ending could also be seen as a metaphorical, with the act of rescuing Ben representing Margaret's psychological battle to just reclaim her agency and overcome the David's control. But by killing David and imagining the rescue of her son, Margaret just symbolically frees herself from any kind of past. So the film is, I think, very good, and especially the ending scene hit me hard. Especially how that thing is physically possible to get the baby out of any man's abdomen or stomach region. I think that idea is just ridiculous, but except that I think everything was just great. And the fear, trauma, the past relationship, the abusive thing, that I think that is the underlying theme of the movie, that just plays and blends so well with the other element of the movie. So it's a very well to go film, I think, and it's a really nice movie if you see. Even the writing was crisp, and movie was I think a bit long. I think it would have been great if some scenes were not stretched, especially in the first half. I mean, in nearly after 30 minutes or 40 minutes, the film begins to just kick off, and the story just sets in. But I think the brilliance of Resurrection, I think, just lies in its refusal to provide clear answer actually. And the ending just forces the audience to grapple with the Margaret's reality and question the extent to which trauma just shapes perception of any particular person, whether the baby is real or not. The ending just I think serves as a very haunting depiction of a woman's desperation attempt to find closure and healing after enduring the very unimaginable suffering that once she had, and she is still suffering from her current relationship due to the past trauma that had just hit her. So I think the film was overall good, and if you like such breakdowns, do like and subscribe to my shadows for more. Thank you for watching.